and welcome to this 30th edition of Wake and Bake News on June 30th, 2015. And I'm your host, Shampoo VTA, Kelly Davis. So nice to get started. I wanted to show you this before we got started. I don't want to make it too long. I'm sorry about yesterday. I don't know what happened with the upload. I haven't had problems like that with YouTube in years. The secret of happiness is freedom, and the secret of freedom is courage. I've had this for my coffee for a very long time, and I love that plaque. I hope I never lose it. I wonder if I can have this put on my tombstone. That is just the best saying right there. Okay. Yesterday, like I said, was horrible. I don't know what was going on. I even went to go see Jurassic World, came back, and for some reason, my video was still uploading. And I was like, what in the hell? And the minutes kept getting longer. It went from like 240 minutes to 478 minutes or something crazy like that. And I was like, okay, this is totally... there's a lot of kids in the house with computers, but I know this is totally not my fault. So restarted the router this morning and don't have any other activity on the internet right now, hopefully. So hopefully the upload won't be a problem when I start doing that. But I don't think it was me. I think it was them. Because I know other YouTubers have had the same problem. It's a mystery. I did not mean for my show to go so long, but there was so much positive news, and there's still more interesting news on the horizon. And let's get to that, shall we? The best part of waking up. Marijuana in your bowl. Alright, shinky dink that thing down. We're gonna go to the beginning of my stories. Oh, yeah, Donald Trump. Oh, yeah. Okay, the police officers are livid. This wasn't actually part of my story, so I won't get into it, but I'll point it out. Cops livid over proposed police reform measures. That they don't want the police to be able to just strong arm everybody and rob them of money. And the police apparently are very angry about this because it sure makes solving crime easy when you can just do whatever you want. So I guess, I mean, I know that's not the way it actually is, but it certainly has been cast that way, and the police certainly haven't helped themselves at all in this situation. Okay, this came up this morning on Forbes. It's interesting how Forbes is suddenly one of these sites like the Cannabist I'm going to get marijuana information. I got a marijuana prescription and pot in minutes without leaving my couch. Oh, is that an ad I'm going to have to kill? Oh, no, it's a video. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Your daughter has a brilliant
idea
for
God.
her science
See,
project.
Nothing can, not have an ad attached to it. When I die, is there going to be ads plastered all over the gates where St. Peter is, letting me into heaven? You know, Verizon. You know, sponsored by Verizon. You are shameless, classless, disgusting people. Okay. Oh, thank you. Let's see. I'll begin this story with a disclaimer. I rarely smoke weed. Aside from the few times that I've tried it recreationally, marijuana has never really appealed to me, as it does to the millions of Americans who light up for medical purposes or just for fun. Perhaps that's what makes my experience with Easy and on-demand weed delivery marketplace all the more surreal. Last Friday, while sitting in my friend's living room, I was able to get a preview of a company's new app based feature, which allows users to consult with a doctor via the mobile phone or computers for medical marijuana assessment. Within an hour, I used Easy to video conference with a doctor, receive a marijuana recommendation, and purchase an ounce of sour diesel for delivery. The cannabis arrived shortly after the sausage and pepperoni pizza I had ordered to accompany it. While diagnosing a patient using an internet video call and delivering marijuana to your front door are not particularly new advance. Easy is hoping that combining the two will break open the legal U.S. cannabis market that did 2.7 million in sales last year, as estimated by the ArcView Market Research, a marijuana investment and advocacy firm. In a time when everything from taxes to groceries have been on demand, taxes. Uh, the San Francisco-based company has raised 12.5 million in funding for investors including DCM Ventures, Snoop Dogg, the Fresh VC to streamline the cannabis delivery market and lead the way in the budding weed startup economy. We want to expand the market, if you will, said Easy's CEO and founder Keith McCarty. There are people that wouldn't want to walk into a dispensary because they are worried about who would see them or because it is a seedy neighborhood. We want to open a market to stay at home soccer moms. And that's really what works for me. The delivery services are really nice. I've always wanted to go to a dispensary, but because of the way the cities have regulated things in California, we get a lot of delivery. Well, now the delivery is amazing. You could go to the beach. Say, hey, I'm at the beach. I'll meet you here, and they will come. I mean, it's amazing. They're amazing. They met me at my mom's house. It's just like pizza. It's exactly like pizza. I actually really like the delivery services. We want to expand the market, if you will. Okay. Though I didn't consider myself to be an easy target demographic, I can easily see how the company's new service will lower the bar for entry for anyone who does want a medical marijuana recommendation. It took me less than 5 minutes for a physician to assess me through the app and prescribe pot for my ailments. It took about the same time to have the marijuana delivered to my door through Easy's main service, which is currently only available in San Francisco and the newly opened areas of Orange County, San Diego, and Los Angeles. When we launched Easy, we knew weed delivery had been around, said McCradden, who notes that he doesn't smoke pot. Leading Easy, people and telemedicine have been around for a while, but can the marijuana get to you in 15 minutes? And can you do it through an app? It's similar to taxes before Uber. Taxis. Oh, taxes. I'm like reading that wrong. Taxis before Uber. I get it. Okay. Well, yeah, because it's okay. It's the Internet of Things. The Internet of Things is coming. The Internet of Things is almost here. The Internet of Things is coming. What is it? Okay. Everything you own will exist in the internet, not like like you can reproduce it or something, but the fact it exists, its data will exist on the internet. So the marijuana that you grow and sell will exist in coded numbers or whatever on the internet, a representation of its existence in real life. Now, we've always done this, but we'll be able to actually track it. see how much the pot smoker actually smokes, how long it takes, what is his, we could break it down to the point where we can see how much water you're going to be using in your home, how much electricity, at what times, what's your refrigerator doing? When you stuff it full of food from the grocery, does it start working harder? You'll be able to use your computer to access things like that and see data that will tell you, what it's doing. Well, that's what this is doing. This is putting physical things that you can sell in the world on the internet and creating a digital presence, and then it boing, comes to your door, and it's just like that Willy Wonka candy bar TV thing with what was that kid? The kid that went into the thing and then got beamed across and he was shrunk smaller, except it's not going to get shrunk smaller, you know. If you want water, electricity, weed, whatever it is, pizza, you can manifest it from the internet. Because the internet will be like a place where all these things in existence are cataloged and you can pick them out. Okay? You can watch them. You can do graphs on them. You can see how things move and expand and grow, like an ecosystem or something. I can imagine. They were talking to us about the Internet of Things. I'm getting off the subject, but this is all in a way part of the Internet of Things, where cars go, where you go, where trucks go, what's in those packages, how much, when does it get used, how long does it take, If I was a business, that kind of data would be very interesting to me, and especially if I'm a homeowner, I want to know the efficiency of my home. The Internet of Things is probably going to make that all very possible for us. Okay, and track your kid on the way to school, I could imagine. Let's see. For me, that online consultation process was easy. After filling out a few web forms and uploading a photo of my driver's license for verification, I waited briefly in an online queue before contacting a doctor through the company's proprietary video chat platform, which Easy said is compliant with the Federal Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. HIPAA. Oh, I know HIPAA. My husband always was talking about HIPAA when he was working in the hospital. Standards that means, among other things, that Easy will not be able to access patient medical data and must provide audit trails for all usage. Plus, they can't reveal anything about you under HIPAA. And you can get in big trouble under HIPAA. HIPAA's very nice. Through Easy Med, I was connected to Dr. Ronald Zlotolo. I'm not going to be able to pronounce that, sir. An international medicine specialist based in Los Angeles. I told the doctor that I suffered from chronic wrist pain, likely carpal tunnel from my strenuous line of work, and that I had tried various fixes from icing to braces to cure the pain. He quickly glanced over my medical history, asked me some cursory questions about my wrist, and noted in less than 3 minutes that he didn't see any reason why I shouldn't try marijuana to help with my pain. I had the recommendation letter in PDF form in my email box soon after and used the rest of my consultation time to press Dr. Zolotolo on the perceived benefits of using an app to diagnose patients. Why not? If my thing is that when I physically go, I have to go to my doctor first. I have to get like a prescription, or I have to get a note from my doctor saying, yes, Kelly has asthma, just like she had asthma 3 years ago, just like she had asthma when she was 12, just like she's going to have asthma when she's 60 if she makes it that far. I have to go to my doctor, get this prescription or note, and then, which is going to cost me money or somebody, and then I got to go over to the, the medical marijuana doctor. He looks over my note and sees, yes, you have asthma. Yes, that applies to medical marijuana, and then he asks me some questions and talks about it and then gives me the recommendation. It's not real fancy, and he don't want to talk long. I tried to ask him about strains. He's like, "Bup, off with yourself." I ain't got time for this. There are people waiting. Doing it this way actually sounds better because then I don't, if I was in a queue on a phone, I might be able to ask more questions of the doctor and not feel rushed because there's a whole bunch of other people in the waiting room hoping, for their turn to get their re-up. Really, I think it should just be re-upped and I should not have to go through this. This is not necessary. I'm always going to have asthma, period. Yeah. Why should I have to pay every year and prove it? It just seems ridiculous. Sounds like a good idea to me. Where did I leave off here? Oh, diagnosing patients. I think it's the way of the future, he said, pointing to other doctors like dermatologists who frequently use video conferencing tools for patients' diagnosis. It's the way we're advancing as a civilization, and it's a natural step. I agree. Star Trek. Nobody would have been criticizing Star Trek if they did it this way. Dr. Zolalto and 3 other doctors at his practice have committed a partnering with ease to consult patients. Another thing, if you think, what was that TV show? It used to be on the 70s, 1 Adam 12 or something like that. And that was like about the first rescue guys that came out from the fire department, and they would have like that call, beep, beep, beep. Well, there was always a doctor at the hospital on a radio going, check his vitals. All right. And then telling these guys that were not doctors, that were, like almost doctors, nurse guys, to what to do to save that dude. So if you could do it over the radio, what the hell is wrong with using your phone? Those doctors and the others that join will be key in driving more people to Easy's marketplace. As the companies compete with the likes of similar startups like Grasp and Meadow. Grasp actually was on Getting Dug with High. And that was the episode with Jack Black because he was making jokes about how you would grasp it. Grasp. Okay. So I've heard of Grasp. McCarty knows that his company will not only have to retain current users, but maintaining delivery times and product quality, but also find new patients by certifying more for medical use. While the recommendations that a patient receives through Easy can be used anywhere, the company is betting that new users will stick to its own marketplace to find the medicinal products they need. Not if there's a better deal somewhere else. Don't assume in business. Well, anyway, I won't read the whole thing, but this was a very interesting story in Forbes about how this young man discovered that, now there are apps available in California for your phone where I didn't realize you could actually consult with a doctor. That's really cool. And, order marijuana and like within an hour of beginning the process, have it done because it doesn't need to be a long process. I don't understand. Why does people have to prove things? I can't sleep. I have headaches. I'm pissed off all the time. I'm stressed out. I have asthma. Why should I have to prove that to you? For what? For whys? Just give me and knock it off. That's what I got to say. It's not, their business to tell me. It's my business to tell them. That's how this works. Power goes from the bottom up, not the top down. OBKB. I am the one who knocks and tells the joke. Knock, knock. Who's there? I am the one who knocks. In approximately 38 hours, this is from Reddit. I saw it and had to repost it on Tumblr. In approximately 38 hours, which was 21 hours ago, recreational marijuana will be legal in Oregon, and they're going to give it away free to people. And seeds. I mean, it's amazing. Government study cast doubt on legal definitions of stoned driving. Your first couple of crops are going to be whatevs. Some will die, some won't start, whatevs. But the important thing is to begin the process of failing. When you're learning to grow marijuana, just begin the process of failing. Get a lot of crappy seeds, mystery seeds from your weed, and start putting them in the ground and seeing what happens. And seeing, after they get to a certain height, you'll discover that they'll start showing who they are, maybe. And you can start pulling out the males and stuff. And you can figure out what different kinds of fertilizer are going to do to the taste of it and everything. Bat guano definitely makes the weed taste good. Bat guano is really good stuff. Just start that learning curve, So a lot of those seeds in Oregon are not necessarily going to be successful marijuana plants. The point is, get started. Start to learn. You got a lot of catching up to do. Government study cast doubt on legal definitions of stoned driving. Simulators test also confirms that marijuana impairs drivers less than alcohol. Okay, now this story was originally run as stoned drivers less impaired than alcohol, but still impaired, which is like they're just desperate. They're just trying to spin the actual findings so it sounds more dangerous and actually supports the argument of having more of these stupid light up signs that say "We DUI is real" and nonsense like that. A new study by researchers at the National Institute of Drug Abuse, NIDA, confirms that marijuana has a less dramatic effect on driving than alcohol does, and casts further doubt on the standard that Colorado and Washington use for determining when someone is too stoned to drive. In the double-blind study, 18 occasional cannabis consumers defined by marijuana use at least once in the previous month. Oh, that's pathetic. But no more than 3 days a week. That's really sad. Took tests at the National Advanced Driving Simulator in Iowa City. After vaping marijuana, drinking alcohol, or taking a placebo, the researchers led by NIDA, senior investigators, remember the placebo was water with alcohol rubbed on the rim and a little bit of alcohol put in just so it seemed like alcohol. And I'm like, so it was alcohol. Stop with yourself, all right? The researchers led by NIDA senior investigator Marilyn Hustis found that a THC level of 13.1 nanograms per milliliter of blood. Senior investigator Marilyn Hustis, I'm reading that again, had an impact on weaving within the lane, aka standard deviations of lateral position, or SDLP, similar to a blood alcohol concentrations of BAC of 0.8. Okay, no, 0.08%. The cutoff used for most drivers in every state. Okay, so what they're saying is that you're using this as the same as an alcohol level, and yet it impairs you less than alcohol. I get what you're saying. So what you're saying is legally you cannot average them out THC level 13.1 nanograms to the 0.08% alcohol because they don't impair your brain in the same way. As a matter of fact, alcohol affects vital parts of your brainstem that can cut off your ability to breathe and stuff like that and kill you. And marijuana doesn't even come close to impairing you in that way at all. Not unless, I mean, you got a giant dab rig and you're just driving down the road. That's just, no, a joint is not going to be the same as like drinking a beer. Is Tiki not behaving? At least he's being quiet when he's with you. I'm sorry that you have to be his babysitter. He doesn't like me. I bring him over here, he just flies away. I'm too loud. Let's see. Notably, the THC level is more than twice as high as the 5 nanogram standard established by Colorado and Washington when they legalized marijuana for recreational use. The result is especially striking because the subjects were occasional users, people who use cannabis every day, including patients who use it for medical reasons, may develop enough tolerance that they can drive safely at THC levels even higher than 13 nanograms. Yet, according to Time, Hustis believes that the 5 UGL limit is not strict enough, particularly when you take into account those with low tolerance. That's another way of looking at it, I suppose. But the 5 nanogram cutoff is in practice means that many regular cannabis consumers can never legally drive, even when they're not impaired. Yeah. Well, and I was going to say that these are occasional cannabis users. Those are pathetic children that you had. No, they are not occasional cannabis users. Yeah, they are, but I mean, they don't represent a cannabis user. A cannabis user goes to work, No one can tell at all. It's astounding. You really do build a tolerance. As a matter of fact, you have to take a break so you can just begin to feel the effects of THC because, once again, we're getting back to the THC cannot kill you. THC can only get you so high. And after you get to that super high point or wherever it is, you can't get any higher because how many receptors in your brain do you actually have? That's just it. All the parking spaces are filled, What are you going to do? So it's kind of bizarre that they're trying to compare it to alcohol, like they try to compare it to cigarettes, like they try to compare it to cocaine, it's its own thing, completely separate. Another result of the study that is relevant to enforcing such limits, Salvia tests accurately confirmed exposure to cannabis but with greater THC concentrates variability than paired blood samples, which poses challenges to concentration-based efforts interpretations. In other words, Salvia tests may be easier and less invasive. Okay. So we're talking about what is it? Saliva. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, saliva tests. I get it. I can't read. Tests may be easier and less invasive, but they are less reliable in determining whether someone has exceeded whatever the legal threshold might be. Plus, if a saliva test was going to be something that would stand in court, then we would be doing that with alcohol. You'd just be doing a swab, right? And not a breathalyzer. There's a reason why we do breathalyzers. That was an actual court battle to establish their legitimacy, and that was not easy to do. Also interesting, I think it was a court battle, but I'm pretty sure there was a battle to make those breathalyzers legal. It wasn't just like, oh yeah, that works. Yeah. They had to prove it in court. I'm sure there were some few people that fought that, Also interesting, especially for people who have heard the frequent warnings from anti-pot prohibitionists about the dangers posed by increased potency. Most of the subjects who were allowed to vape at at will for 10 minutes achieved about the same blood THC level whether they were given weak cannabis with a THC concentrate of about 3% or strong cannabis with a THC concentrate of about 7%. As the researchers put it, smokers can self uh, titrate cannabis dose to achieve desired pharmaceutical response. And you get so high, and then you can puff on the thing as long as you want, and all you're gonna do is just go to sleep. You know, you're just gonna take a nap. And not like crash like into a zombie, but like, pull over to the side of the road and take a little nap. Although this study provides additional evidence that marijuana poses less of a road hazard than drug warriors often claim, Time health reporter Eliza Gay managed to obscure that point. While drunk driving is on the decline in the U.S., she writes, driving after having smoked or otherwise consumed marijuana has become more common. According to the most recent National Roadside Survey from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, of weekend nighttime drivers, 8.3% had smoked alcohol or had some alcohol in their system, and 12.6% tested positive for THC, up from 8.6% in 2007. Gray neglected to mention that the landmark NHTSA crash risk study released the same day found that once that data were adjusted for confounding variables, cannabis consumption was not associated with an increased probability of getting into an accident. And yes, this is what we're seeing a lot of. These studies, especially from the government, expect this in the future. This is what the future holds. The government is going to do these studies, right? They're opening up so more people can do studies. Well, the studies are going to come out, and you're going to see these pathetic, crippled, hobbling prohibitionists sit there and try to mangle it in, these kind of articles and hide the lead and say, oh, but look, no, what it really says is, and you could tell when I first read the article that came out, it was like, no, I know damn well that they just had a Senate hearing where they were talking about drug driving, and trust me, they were looking for problems. And I honestly thought maybe they'd find some, and they found nada, like zero, zip, nothing worth even talking about. I think this is, more trying to run the prohibitionists out of different aspects of our government, and one of them is highway safety. You got to run them out of there, because it's not appropriate for them to be there. They're doing things that aren't scientific. They're doing it for a political purpose because they want pharmaceutical companies to continue. I don't know. It's aggravating. Cops say the massive pot raid carried out in California last week wasn't really about pot. Now, recently I read a story about how the growers up north are getting together to try to get in line with legalization. And they talked about how it was not going to be legal for them to grow in ecologically sensitive areas anymore, and depriving ecologically sensitive areas of water. Although, if we get a big El Nino, you watch, California will forget all about this. We always do. And we may get a big El Nino. So beware of that. This all could fade away next year. It's not like we'll be out of the drought, but the human brains will think it's over because it's raining. We're stupid like that. So if we get a couple of big rains, some mudslides, everybody in California will be like, "Oh, it's over," and they'll go on with their life. There were helicopter SWAT teams and nearly 100,000 marijuana plants yanked out of the ground, but last week's massive raid in Northern California's rugged Emerald Triangle was not your father's pot bust, carried out by county law enforcement with no help from the DEA. It targeted private landowners, and not just because they were growing pot, police say, but because they were illegally sucking some 500,000 gallons of water a day from a section of a nearby Eel River that is now stagnant and moss-ridden. In short, the cops say this was as much a water raid as a pot raid. One certainly could imagine, in this era of evolving attitudes towards marijuana, a shift in enforcement focuses towards environmental problematic grows on steep wooded hillsides or above sensitive salmon streams is an increasingly dry climate. These are not isolated issues. Among the growers targeted in last week's raids, according to the Lost Cast Outpost, were members of the California Cannabis Voice Humboldt, a group working to bring growers into compliance with state and federal environmental laws. A leading advocate of Northern California pot growers scoffs at the notion that the raid was environmentally motivated. This isn't about the environment. This is about business as usual, says Hazaka Allen, director of the Emerald Growers Association. Allen challenges the authorities' water use estimates, pointing out that the extensive reservoir discovered at the grow sites could be eco-friendly ways of storing winter runoff for use during the summer growing season, but also questions the value of criminal raids at a time when California Water Board is drafting a system of water use permits and civil fines for pot farmers. There are 2,200 unpermitted water diversions for wine grapes in the Central Valley, he points out, citing a state report. So I am curious when we are going to see the sheriff show up and chop down unpermitted vines. Wow, that was a really good point. If we are agnostic about what the crop is, the same crime should lead to the same activity. That is all we are asking, just to be treated like any other crop. Oh, what a good point. Why the hell are these wine growers doing that? Yet if states and local officials are to be believed, they did not respond to requests for comment. The raid suggests that even the most eco-conscious Emerald Triangle growers could face a reckoning once California probably inevitably legalizes cannabis and starts subjecting pot farmers to agricultural inspections. Even with the best land use practices, many Emerald Triangle farmers likely draw too much water from sensitive mountain streams and headwaters. Growers may find that it's cheaper and more eco-friendly to relocate to the Central Valley. Or why stop there? Cannabis indigenous to most river valleys in Central and South Asia uses about 6 gallons per day per plant. That's more than many other thirsty crops, such as cotton, which uses 10 gallons per plant for the entire growing season, which suggests that cannabis should be grown somewhere wet, somewhere somewhere other than California. The southern states could fill in here, but they're filled with morons. Oh, why stop there? Okay, I read that. That's brilliant. Allen doesn't see that happening. He argues that cannabis farming in the Emerald Triangle can be sustainable when farmers cultivate drought-tolerant Kush varieties from Afghanistan and irrigate entirely with rainwater stored in tanks on site. After all, no crop offers a greater financial yield per gallon of water. If we step back and take a look at this industry and the jobs that it creates, California cannot afford not to grow cannabis in the 21st century, he says. It's one of the most adaptable resource efficient ways of generating revenues on small farms. Plus, okay, it's carbon neutral. It will suck the carbon out of the atmosphere, and then you can use, instead of returning it to the atmosphere, if you grow hemp, you can turn it into this stuff called hempcrete, build your house out of it, and the carbon's locked in forever, as long as the hempcrete exists, and the hempcrete turns to rock. So, it's not just good. It's good for the environment because it could save the fucking planet. And I wish people would notice that. It could clean our atmosphere of all these toxins, but no, people are so stupid. Stupid. No, you should not be draining our rivers and streams and fucking with our salmon fisheries. We've already totally lost the steelhead trout out here in California. All our rivers are dead concrete pieces of junk now. It's disgusting. Don't do what we have done. This tragedy. Okay, Bobby Jindal signs marijuana bills that reform criminal penalties, medical marijuana access. You come into California, you really don't notice the damage, but if you look at some historical photographs of my town, and you see like a guy with a car, and he's got about 20 steelhead trout, and they're like this long hanging off his car, and he's parked in the middle of the Ventura Avenue, and that's where he caught the fish. Suddenly you realize, what in the fuck has happened to this place? Because you can't catch any fish now. No fish. There are no fish. There are no fish. Okay. You're not allowed to do it anyway, but I mean, they're gone. That is gone. So you can damage an area badly. Okay. Back on this. Governor Bobby Jindal on Monday signed 2 bills that is 1 year represents more progress on reforming marijuana laws than the state has made in 24 years since legalizing medical marijuana in 1991. In the case of one of the bills, which would set up a framework for dispensing marijuana for medical purposes, SB 143, it will make Louisiana the first state in the South to make marijuana available for a wide range of chronically ill patients. The state passed medical marijuana legislation in 1991, but never set up a framework for how the state would cultivate, prescribe, or dispense the drug. The other bill, HB 149, would reform criminal penalties for marijuana, making it a misdemeanor rather than a felony for a second offense of marijuana possession. It also allows first-time offenders to erase their first conviction for possessing marijuana if they don't re-offend within 2 years. Jindal has previously indicated his support for both pieces of legislation. But in a departure from other major bill signings, Jindal did not issue a press release explaining why he signed the bill, or offer a commentary about the importance of the 2 bills' signings. One of the reasons the 2 bills were seen as so important this year is that the bill's sponsor managed to convince key opponents in years past, including the Louisiana Association of Sheriffs, not to stand in the way of the legislation this year. The Sheriffs Association did not endorse the legislation, but also did not seek to block it. You can read about efforts to convince the Sheriffs Association not to block the bill here. That sounds interesting. Various efforts to pass similar legislation failed in the past. Some organizations, including the Sheriff's Association and the District Attorneys Association, had voiced opposition to the criminal penalties reform because they viewed it as a step closer to legalization. So this time they didn't. If they view it as a step closer to legalization, they decided not to stand in the way, didn't they? And I also noticed that, okay, this is Louisiana, and they've legalized it for a wide range of medical patients. Hello, Florida. Guess where some of your weed's going to be coming from? So you better start seriously thinking about medical. Otherwise, you're in like kind of a trade war there with your southern brother. That's going to be interesting. Just like what goes on here in the West. Somehow that weed just manages to cross those borders. Magically. This is why prohibition didn't work. You can't have blue laws. It's just ridiculous. The guy drives to the next county, gets drunk, and then dies trying to drive back home. Blue laws. Stupid. Stupid, stupid. This is a blue law. Op-ed. Pot prohibition is almost over. Oklahoma Nebraska suit is doomed. In response to law professor Zachary Blitho's recent op-ed, which predicted the death sentence for legal weed in America, law prof. Sam Kimmons says quite the opposite is happening. There is much that I agree with Mr. Zachary Blitho's Los Angeles Times op-ed, and enough with which I disagree that I felt compelled to write this short reply. First, the areas of agreement. Federal law is the supreme law of the land. Every person in every state is obligated to obey federal provisions and is subject to sanctions if they fail to do so. The federal government criminalizes marijuana, and the Supreme Court has upheld its power to do so. Federal law enforcement officials may enforce marijuana laws anywhere in the country, including in those states that have passed medical or recreational marijuana legalization. Thus, every person in Colorado who manufactures, sells, or possesses marijuana is in violation of federal law and is subject to arrest, prosecution, and imprisonment upon conviction. It is there that Mr. Blitho and I must part ways, for it simply does not follow that the fact of federal supremacy that the states are obligated to pass laws similar to the Controlled Substance Act, or to keep such prohibitions on the books if they wish to remove them. With this, even the states of Oklahoma and Nebraska agree. Their complaint against Colorado and the Supreme Court says as much. But just as obvious, the federal government, or more fundamentally, the states of Oklahoma and Nebraska, cannot force any state to administer a federal program or to enforce a federal law. Mr. Blitho writes about the Clean Water Act and the Brady gun law, but it is unmistakably clear that the federal government cannot force state officials, cannot commandeer them to use the constitutional term to enforce those laws. This is what ultimately dooms the Oklahoma and Nebraska suit, and is the crux of my disagreement with Mr. Blitho. Furthermore, this case is fundamentally different from Blitho's other principal examples. The federal lawsuit against Arizona to keep that state from creating its own immigration laws. There it was important that the United States have a single uniform immigration policy. The federal government expressed that view by filing suit against Arizona, and the Supreme Court agreed, striking down key provisions of the Arizona law. In the context of marijuana law reform in the states, things are quite different. The federal government has thus far been willing to accommodate state law experimentation, largely because the Controlled Substance Act, by its own terms, provides room for such inconsistent state laws, even while prohibiting marijuana at a federal level. In passing the Controlled Substance Act, Congress stated its intent to preempt only those state laws that present a positive conflict such that the state law and the federal law cannot be read together. And that makes good sense. The regulation of drugs and other enforcement of criminal laws is work generally left to the states themselves. Congress prohibited marijuana, but in doing so, it left room for the states to develop other approaches to marijuana. U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch's predecessor, Eric Holder, endorsed such experimentation so long as 8 federal criteria were met. Where do we go? Were met by state law reform. Miss Lynch should follow Mr. Holder's lead and should allow experimentation to take its course. This is not lawlessness or disrespect for the federal law. It is exactly the sort of laboratory of ideas that is our that our state can be at their best. That's exactly right. What was I saying? The power comes from the people up to the top. They may have these laws, but if people don't agree with them, how can they possibly stand? I mean, there's a point where you just have to, it's unenforceable. Are you going to send troops into Colorado? I don't think so. So what are we doing here? You know? What are we doing? What's the point of this? And it gets better. And it gets better. I have two stories here that are going to work in unison, and they're going to be fun. So let's start this game. Oh, I went a hit for this. I had to get through all that other stuff just to get to these two stories, which I noticed are like, oh, look how they work together. How funny. Or is it? A little clogging. Now, I want you to notice I can actually see this ad. Do you know why? Because it's not a video. All you people out there running video ads on all these news sites, you are just garbling each other. Nobody can tell what the heck you're saying. I mean, is this the salesmanship now? Just these horrible, hellish sounds coming out of my computer? I don't even know what the words mean. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie to throw his hat into the ring for White House run. Now, we all knew this was coming, but please remember that Chris Christie is a prohibitionist and would repeal all of this. Oh, he would not allow Colorado or anyone else to legalize marijuana. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie expected to become the latest Republican to throw his hat into the ring for 2016. He'll make the announcement today at 11 a.m. From his hometown of Livingston, New Jersey. The governor faces an uphill climb for the nomination with low poll numbers and fundraising deficit. The Washington Post reporter Robert Costa, writes of Christie today. His status as the establishment favorite for the GOP nomination has vanished. Dogged by scandals and plummeting popularity in his home state, Christie has seen many of the mega donors who once toasted him drift towards his rivals, including former Florida Governor Jeb Bush. And who could blame them? Even I thought Chris Christie had something till I started to find out what his business there was really like in New Jersey, and he could drop off a cliff for all I care. At one bridge too far. He went one bridge too far. Okay, but don't write him off. Maggie Haberman in the New York Times today explains why, more than any other candidate, Mr. Christie is poised to run a race that sells his personality, brash, challenging, and often combative, as his main asset. Oh, he's going to be challenged and combative, all right, if he gets into this debate. Okay, so I want you to envision in your mind Jeb Bush, Donald Trump, and Chris Christie arguing with each other. It's going to be the most wonderful. I'm really going to enjoy these GOP debates. They are going to be hilarious with all these clowns. Okay, so I read you that story. Yes, President Obama to expand overtime pay to 5 million Americans. I would go there, but Newsweek is just absolutely covered in HTML ads, so it's not worth even trying. I'm sure there's other stories out there I could have found, but I wanted to get to this. That's wonderful. I'm all for that. That's wonderful. Raise minimum wage for God's sake. But please have the news put on news sites that aren't just absolutely packed with HTML. It's still hard to get away from it. Marijuana oil bill for schools passed by legislation. Now remember, this goes to Chris Christie because this is happening in New Jersey. A bill that would allow children to, with certain debilitating conditions, to take marijuana oil while attending school has been passed by the New Jersey legislature. and is headed to the governor's desk. The governor's desk, right? So Chris Christie has to sign this bill that has like passed, okay? Only children who had been issued marijuana identification cards by the state health department would be eligible for the treatment. The Senate granted final approval Monday after the Assembly voted in favor of an identical bill. We're talking about some of the state's most severely disabled students, some of whom suffer life-threatening seizures. The and medical marijuana is the only thing that has helped ease their condition, said Assembly Majority Leader Louis D. Greenwald, Democrat, who sponsored the bill, and Pamela Lippett, who also sponsored the bill. So they're two Democrats. Interesting. In recent months, parents of students who suffer from seizures disorders have appealed to school policies that prohibit the use of marijuana on school grounds, even by children with marijuana IDs, according to a statement released by the bill sponsors. Now, this is eventually going to happen, and that will be the end of just say no in the schools forever and ever and ever. Because how are you going to just say no all that nonsense in a classroom when one of the students, and probably a popular student and a student that other students are rooting for, is using marijuana to save their life? You're going to sound like a right fool. So guess what? Textbook manufacturers win again because they're going to have to reprint all this nonsense. Win again. The textbook manufacturers win again. We're going to have to rewrite history. But the interesting thing is that Christie is going to have to sign this bill. It's a popular bill. It's a popular subject. This young lady needs help so she can be healthy and be in school and having that experience with other students. Isn't that what we're always arguing about? Why brick and mortar schools are so important, is so that those students socialize with other students and have the experience of having living teachers that they're talking to and all this kind of thing. Well, you're not allowing this young person to have those experiences if you're not allowing her to have her medication at school. So this is going to win, period. Get used to the idea. There's going to be school nurses handing this out. The interesting thing is that it's Chris Christie that either has to say yes or no to this at its inception. At the point where it really begins to enter into the legal framework and be discussed, it's Chris Christie who's going to have to put his pen to it, yes or no. And he's just announced he's running for president. Isn't that interesting? Kind of like a big sabotage, really, because I think if he says no, that'll come up a little bit in his campaign. Hey, didn't you block a young lady from getting medical marijuana and, being able to have it in school? And if he says yes, because he's politically in trouble and this would help him, well, I mean, it just gets more interesting, doesn't it? So I just thought that was really cool that Chris Christie announced that he was going to run for president, which makes the GOP debates an absolute clown show. It's going to be amazing. I can't wait to watch. They may lose their behinds, but they are going to be entertaining on the way out. And the fact that he has to say yes or no to allowing the student to use medical marijuana in the schools, and he's a prohibitionist. So I can't wait to see how that turns out. That's going to be very interesting. And everything is swinging, I have to say, stoners, in a positive way for us. I've been reading the news about marijuana for a very long time. Since I was reading it in High Times magazine about unfair raids and raiding old people's homes, and that wasn't the drug dealer's house, or how they stole $500 out of some kid's backpack, because they found weed in there and they went, and your money's mine too. And they were reporting that stuff all back in the 80s in High Times magazine. High Times has done a lot for us as stoners. But I've been reading the news for a long time, and this is an entirely different beast now. We're now pushing away from the battleground which we have won, clear, of whether this is medicine or whether the government should be studying this in a serious way, or what have you been doing exactly the last 30 years about marijuana? Because so far what I see is you've been a problem, and maybe been causing Americans a problem and denying us medication we could have had because you want to what? Subjugate poor race people, people of color, so you can subjugate them. This is the most what really, for what? Not even worth it. Totally stupid. Why are you crippling our society like that? We need them. Ugh, so annoying. Oh, got a little clog there going on. Whoop, having a hot flash. Woo. Ah, last night. Well, it's really, the sun starts coming in, and it does really get steamy here. But because of my menopause, I'm so sensitive. I can feel the heat coming off people. I'm like, okay, could you stand over there? Oh, I'm dying. And then I'm too cold. It's weird. It's like ebb and flow. Hot, cold, hot, cold. That's why I'm the dragon now. Because I'm literally turning into a dragon. Getting scales, claws. It's kind of interesting. This old age thing is fun. I kind of like it. At first it was terrible, but now it's like I just sleep through it. So it must be getting better. It's still happening, but it doesn't. I like wake up and I'm like, oh, okay. And I go back to sleep. And before it was like, oh my god, this is horrible. I feel terrible. I don't like the way this feels, and all kinds of stuff. And get up and change my clothes and change the bed and do everything because it makes you just sweat, sweat, sweat. And now it's like, oh, whatevs. Yeah. I don't even care anymore. It's like, yeah, I could take anything. Okay. So that's the end of this episode, and it's an hour. Oh my gosh. You read like 5 stories, and it turns into an hour, and I don't think I'm doing that much blathering. I'm trying to do more reading. Yesterday was a lot of stories. I got to admit, yesterday was a lot of good stories. A lot of good stories are coming. That's what I'm trying to say is this is becoming an easier battle. I don't feel like I'm scared about anything. I feel much better, not worried as much about this whole thing. Coming out, talking to people, saying, no, I have a right. I don't even have to be that person anymore. I used to, like, in the 80s, we would go to, like, concerts in LA. And one time in this, like, vegetarian restaurant where my friend's band was playing, that was like they left the mic open, and so I knew the band, so a couple of us like got to go up there and just yell things randomly to our friends in this vegetarian restaurant. So of course, what do I get up there? I'm like it was barely audible, but I'm like, free the weed. Everybody cheered. I was shocked. I thought I was saying something that was like a little bit sketchy, but everybody just went, yeah. That's when I was like, yeah, see, I'm not the only one. People fucking agree. I'm not saying everybody gotta smoke pot or something. Just what the fuck you all up my ass about it for? Or anybody else's for that matter, especially poor people. Damn, I don't even understand it. For why? I mean, it's just that. Jiminy Christmas. This is like nothing. uh, I also liked what the guy said about how apparently grapes are also drawing from our streams and rivers and stuff like that. Typical California. What I say, it's like the two Jakes. It's like Chinatown. Rich people just using the law to do whatever creepy things rich people want to do. Just weird. I don't understand it. Why waste your time doing that? People that are like not in sync or something, they just feel this need to struggle against reality. It's weird. They're weird. Damaged, I guess. Anyway, so I'll let you go, and you have a good Tuesday. And I'm going to go off to practice guitar at my brother's house. And my son's supposed to come over and head over with us, so I'm going to have a good day too. And hopefully see you tomorrow. And hopefully this doesn't take a month and a half to upload. Hopefully YouTube is behaving itself today. Let us find out. You stay high and goodbye.